Okay, I can't. I won't. I am here to answer your questions, and this one I feel like I can't do. One law firm owner wrote to me and asked me if I would do a comparison of different legal practice management software. And I have to say no. And I say this with all the love in the world. I say this knowing the person who made this request. I know this law firm owner well. I know her gifts as an attorney, and I'm familiar with her practice area. And I still can't do a meaningful comparison of different practice software because I believe that this kind of software is so specific to the individual and their practice and their firm that it is not truly meaningful for me to say what I think is the best for you if there is some particular thing that is very important to you that is not on my radar or something that I would not consider. So, what I want to do instead, and I do want to answer this question, I know that you know that there are thousands of Reddit threads and videos and articles about different legal practice software, Clio, Practice Panther, in my case, all kinds of things. And they have all pros and cons. There is no software charming. There is no beautiful thing at the end of the rainbow that will magically come and solve all of your practice problems. And I know that you know this. And I also know that most of us get caught up when we're shopping for software in the possibility that if I purchase the perfect software, it will solve all my problems. And I'm here to tell you that you cannot buy your way out of chaos. You only digitize it, right? If you do not have a think ahead of time and really consider what are your needs and what are your wants, then you will not be able to do, or you'll just manage with whatever practice software you get. And I say this coming from a particular experience. I worked in a firm where when we started the new firm, we continued using the old billing software. This was back in the day. And our new firm was entirely Mac based and billing software was on a PC. And so we kept one PC in the law library where we would go and finish the billing every month. And mostly it was support staff doing this. And so it was very harkening back to the old fashioned times when everyone had an assistant and they took care of all the billing and they didn't have to deal with any of this. Maybe those were the carbon copy days, if you know exactly what that is. This is one of those things where we do not want to just digitize our problems that exist in our practice, but we want to find software that will help us not just tame the chaos, but maybe manage it and overcome it in a way. Also, that this point, when you're changing software, is a wonderful time for you to really clean up your records and really consider how you're going to move forward with something. So, this is my 2 cents. The things I believe that you really want to consider is one, does the workflow that is created by the software fit your practice area and your own practice? For example, if you have a AI firm or a social security appeals firm, then you have lots and lots of one-time clients and they come in the door, they need to go through this particular process, you service them and then they're out, right? And so it is a high volume practice. It is something where you will necessarily have more client intakes because this is part of the process versus somebody who has maybe an estate planning practice or a business law practice where they have fewer clients. They tend to stay for a longer time. Estate planning, they may convert to probate clients, this sort of thing, or they may just specifically come to you for the one thing. But it's possible that they will need to revise their plan at some point in the future. So it is expected that you will have the same client more than once. So this is one of those things where you need to really know you and your practice, talking about what are your strongest needs at this point, and then maybe what you would like as add-ons. I think that some of this comes to the second point, which is how well does this particular practice software work with other softwares? Now, let's be real. There are lots of programs like Zapier or If This, Then That, programs which connect to disparate programs, but it is really nice to have your practice software natively connect to the other software as needed. And I'm thinking particularly with the ease of billing and accounting software, because this is something that if you don't have cash flow in your firm, you no longer have a firm. This is the one thing that will kill your firm. And so this is one of those places where you want to be able to go ahead and confirm that not only does your information connect, but it connects natively and easily. The days of creating our own solutions and ways of exporting the data out and importing it into another program are not important. The one thing that you may want to consider when you are looking at how well these things connect, and I think primarily this is billing accounting software, and then the other side for many firms, it's their intake software or their client relationship management software, so CRM. Now, there are some practice systems that incorporate both of these or one or both of these. All of those things, sometimes these incorporations are lovely and wonderful and work really well. Like if you have your payment systems incorporated in your practice management system that is also incorporated with your accounting system, this is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And sometimes one of those systems doesn't work quite as well. And so this is one of those things where you can consider, okay, well, is a baseline kind of thing important? I mean this specifically for things like things that are sort of peculiar to the legal practice. For example, evergreen retainers. And specifically, if you have a retainer system where your client draws down to a certain point, and this point may be less or the same as their initial deposit into the retainer, that automatically goes out and requests more funds. That you have the ability to set up these kinds of automations or connections to your payment software, to your billing, so that your practice runs more easily, so that you do not have to think about all these sorts of things. You can set them up at the beginning of representation and they just flow. This is a place to really think about what are your wants, what are your needs. And this is also some place where trust accounting is so important. I mean, if you're looking at ways to get disbarred as a lawyer, you know that trust accounting is an issue. This is one of the things you want to be careful with. And also, if you have a particular thing that your practice area, for example, leads billing and that kind of thing, if that's part of the process, then you need to have that. So these are things to think about. And it is so specific to you and your practice and your firm. Not only do we want something that works easily with other software, here's the third point. We want something that works easily with the least technical person in our firm. And by this, I mean, will they be able to adopt the new system to a sufficient level so that you can get done the things you need to be done? I'll tell you my experience again. I worked with an attorney who was brilliant and wonderful in so many ways and did not enter in timekeeping contemporaneously. This was the biggest struggle we ever had with this particular attorney. And we just got around it. And I mean, it was a kind of situation of associates managing up. So every time associates would work with this attorney, they would stop at the end of the conversation and be like, okay, great. So we talked about this. Let's put your time in. And have you done anything else today? Great. Let's make sure that all of that is entered. Oh, just tell me more about that. And they would literally do the typing for him so that he could continue to do the great work he did to continue to contribute to the firm, and we could actually capture his time. And it was not a situation where he had to go back and look through emails and recall conversations and check his calendar for what he had done. And this was one of those things where we worked around the system. And if it is something that your least tech person can do to really integrate into the system, and especially when you are starting the system, if you can bring them along, this is how you want to do it. And you need to know this when you're going into the software, because if this software is beautiful, beautiful software and you don't use it, it's useless, right? You're paying a lot of money for a lot of bells and whistles that you have basically turned off. And so this is the opportunity. And this does not mean that you have to use everything from your software. In fact, I actually don't know any firm or any person. Oh, wait, I can think of one lawyer. One lawyer I know who has used their software to the max and probably even beyond, because this person was a real optimizer and optimized everything and automated everything. But other than this one person, I know very few of us use, and I'm including myself, very few of us used all of the capabilities of our software. And I think it's something to consider. How easy is it for you to bring along the least adept person, and that may be you in your firm, to be able to use the software and to get out of it what you need? So far, we've talked about, the workflow for your practice area. We've talked about its connection and ability to work with other software. We've talked about how it's going to be easy or hard to adopt for your firm. Another thing that you will want to consider, and I mean this quite strongly, is your ability to exit or port your data out. I don't know about you, but I have definitely personally been involved in getting a subscription super, super easy, really not so bad, pretty cheap, good, works, done. And trying to leave it is like trying to leave that gym membership from hell, right? You can't get out, and you can't get your information, or you can't get it in a form that is meaningful for you, that you will be able to then port it into another software. And this is, I think, almost criminal with legal practice software. In fact, I would shy away from any firm that does not have a clear data portability plan and be able to express it to you clearly and simply. And also that they have a disaster plan. So for example, if it is a cloud-based software, are there multiple backups? Is it located on several servers and possibly in different countries, right? So that the failure of one would not cause the loss of all your data. And I also want to bring up a small point that is not so relevant for most of us, but we do know that security is an issue. We do have a legal obligation to secure our client data. And some of us have a higher obligation. For example, if you are a patent attorney who is working with patenting inventions that may be under some kind of government contract, so there's a secrecy aspect, then you have a legal obligation to not store your client data on a server located in particular areas around the world. And so you want to know exactly where their servers are so that you can be compliant with your legal practice area. This is just something small to consider, and I think it's a really great question to ask in the beginning. And I also think that this is a good time for you to decide what are the steps you are going to take for disaster prevention and for really making sure that you have extracted your data and you are able to continue on no matter what. In fact, I know at one point there was one software that we really liked because they stepped up with this question in the very beginning. They talked about where their servers were. They talked about how they had multiple backups, and they talked about what the data would look like when it came out, when you were able to port. They also talked about what would happen if their particular company went under and how they had created a safety system that would basically take over their company data related to each law firm in case they went into receivership or something like this. So they had really answered all of those concerns for us, and this I really appreciated. So I want you to take this into the conversation of before you choose a particular software. Another thing that I think is more important these days is mobile accessibility. And so this may not be at all relevant to you. And I think it will become more and more relevant as time goes on. I know that for me personally, when I was still practicing, the mobile capabilities of the software was often lacking. And you know that they are not designed mobile first. I think, in fact, I do not know of any practice management system that is designed mobile first. It's always designed for the desktop. Then they have some things for the laptop, and then they create the mobile. And so the user experience for the mobile is less usually. And for some people, that's enough. But for me, I often found myself going into my browser on my phone and using the desktop version of the software because I needed to do something that I couldn't do through the app. And it was super annoying because it's teeny, teeny, tiny print that I'd have to magnify and shrink down, and it was crazy. And so I want to let you know that if this is an important part of your practice, for example, if you go out to meet your clients at their office, do you have a place for them to be able to sign documents electronically? Do you have a place for you to be able to put in your time? Because no one needs to wait until they get back to their laptop, until they get back to their desktop to be able to enter their time. This is such a waste of thought and energy. And often that lag between when you're doing the work and you're putting in your time, if you leave it too long, you forget, or it's not as good, or it's not as precise. So this is one of those places where really having a good mobile integration, especially with timekeeping and with billing, I think is so important. So that's something to consider. And last, and I think that this is so important, is to inquire and investigate their support structure. I don't know about you, but there are some software programs that are wonderful with the beginning, wonderful getting you onboarded and getting you into the system. And then it's 3, 6, 10 months down the line, and you cannot figure out how to solve a problem. And so you look in their software, you send the support message, and you're not getting a response in the time you need or in a structure that is helpful to you. I know that for me, it is important at some point if I can call and speak to, and that's probably showing my age, but for me, that sort of specific help, the ability to reach out and get really good information back is so great. And I don't mind sending in a help ticket first and getting that email response first. And if that works, great. If it doesn't, okay, then I get a telephone number. I'm okay with this. But I want to be able to talk to a human at some point if I need. 1, you can ask if this is possible. 2, I encourage you to think of some problem you've had with your software in the past. Some problem that you might think that you'll have. It could be some simple as I created a text snippet, which is you type in a shorter thing and it creates a longer thing. So for example, PC for me was telephone conference with, and I had to type in was PC and it would type the words telephone conference with, and then I could do. And so my text snippet isn't correct and I want to change it and I can't find that spot again. So can you go to the help desk, the help section of their website, and find the answer to that particular problem? And if you find the answer to that particular problem, can you follow the way that they have structured it? Do they have videos? Do they have good pictures? Do they have the current version of their software? I don't even know how many times I've looked at help on the internet for something and it's like for a different operating system or for a prior, even years and years ago system that it looks nothing like this now. And so how current and how helpful is their help content? Because you will at some point need this. I think it's important for you to look at not only how will this be in the beginning, but how will it be 1 year from now, 3 years from now? How will I be able to continue to use this and learn the software? Because you know you're not going to know everything at the beginning. You know that the skills are going to develop over time. And that brings me to a slight little side note is, in some ways, you gotta love who you're with. And so I'm gonna put this here. Once you choose your software, take time with it. Learn it, use it, and know that you don't know everything. And so set aside time. And I recommend even putting time on your calendar 1 month out, every quarter from there. This sort of time where you learn a new thing in your software, you learn how to use something that will help you in your practice, an automation, a way of incorporating the software itself into your intake process, this sort of thing. This continuous development, I think, is so important, and it is something that will allow you to really begin to use your software as much as possible. And your software isn't going to be perfect. And this is the part where the more you use your software and you use the capabilities that it has, and you learn maybe workarounds around the things that aren't as great, I think that this is one of those things where you can make it work for you. You can enjoy it. You can appreciate it. You can use it to its full capabilities. And it still doesn't have to be perfect. And that's okay, because it won't be. We all know this. So I hope this helps. I'm so sorry that I did not do what you actually requested, what you asked, because I can't tell you. I cannot tell you, even knowing this particular lawyer as well as I do, which software is the best for your practice, because these are the factors that I really think you should consider. Do you know what you're doing? Remember, do not digitize your chaos. Really start to make a plan around what does your workflow look like with this practice software. How does it fit in? How can you integrate it into your other software? How can you make it easier for everyone in your practice to begin to use the software? And also, not only have this cadence for yourself where you continue to develop the skills, but also everyone in your firm. And then use your disaster plan, stick to it. You know, if you every quarter want to download your data just in case, go ahead and do that, right? Keep it somewhere. Whatever you need to do in order to satisfy your needs or your practice area needs. Also, investigate the mobile usability, and where things aren't great, please be vocal. Talk to the company, make requests. And maybe they have something that you want, or maybe they'll put it into the pipeline and they'll develop it just for you. You never know. I hope this helps. I hope that you at least have a bit of a framework for choosing. There are lots of videos out there that talk about different kinds of software, and truly, Reddit is a rabbit hole for this kind of thing. But for me, it's less about the software and more about me, and more about how I use it, more about how my firm practices and our needs. And so this is the place to begin. All right. Thank you very much. This has been Halo, Help a Lawyer Out. We answer questions for lawyers and law firm owners every week. And I'm Moira. I'm a former IP attorney turned legal practice consultant, and I love this stuff. So I hope you have a wonderful week and happy lawyering. Bye-bye.